Welcome, everybody.
To the Two Posh Podcast. I am your host, Marcella, and I get to start the show today, so I feel like special. And I am here with my poor, sick mom who has no voice. The beautiful Gabrielle.
She leads in with the beautiful, and you call her poor, sick
mom.
I said beautiful after.
Eventually.
Eventually.
She said it endearingly.
I did.
Very much so.
I did it.
I'm just sad my voice is not sexy yet.
It's not, it'll be sexy next
I
week.
sound like a croaked bird.
That's so funny.
And my Puerto Rican brother.
What happened to beautiful?
My beautiful Puerto Rican brother, Bernie.
That's right. Hey.
Hi, y'all. And our amazing spider.
Ho, ho, ho.
And if anybody can see the studio right now on YouTube, it's decorated like Christmas.
So cool.
And then we have our amazing guest, Tonja, back for show 2.
Hi.
Tonja Hartman, you are amazing. Let me tell you,
we got really heated in show 1.
Yeah.
And Tonja and I were talking about that we love when people disagree because we feel like these days people are afraid to not agree with something, and we like the arguing.
that was awesome.
I say it's constructive
Yeah.
discussion, and in the end, you can agree to disagree, but it's good.
It's fine. Look, she knows she's wrong. It's fine. I'm kidding.
We're going to duke it out after this.
But it makes it, I think it keeps it interesting because when everybody is like, yeah, okay, I agree, because they don't really feel that way, we think it makes it really fun. So if
or you stuff it like he wants you to.
Yeah.
I just don't want innocent people to bleed and die.
Tonja, I wanted to devote this show to, you have 3 children. 2 sons and 1 daughter. How old are they?
Oh gosh, this is going to tell my age. My oldest son is actually 30. And then I have a 28-year-old son. And then Ariana's 15. Ari.
So tell us about the struggles that you have had with your oldest son. The struggles, how they started. Mm-hmm. How did you notice? What has he gone through? What does that do to you as a mom? What does that do to you as a family? What does that do to you as a remarried in your marriage? I know there is bipolar, addiction, incarceration. Tell us all about how this all happened, because honestly, my heart bleeds for you, because anytime,
gosh, I'm gonna need my Kleenex,
but anytime they always say we're only as happy as our unhappiest
They're coming.
child.
Yeah.
So,
oh man, I've never heard that before.
Yeah, she says that a lot.
That made me really feel really sad.
It's the truth.
Yeah, it really.
So me as a mom, I think relating like anything. I mean, when our children are sick, it's like, oh my god, like everything. Yeah. So to have to deal with stuff like that has to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
So take us through.
Okay. Well, in the last segment, we talked a lot about breaking off those generational curses. And I can take you back in my own family and my mom's side. Her father was basically like a Southern Mafia guy. He owned his county. He was a very, very mean man. And then he had this other side that was apparently quite charming. But he ran moonshine.
Oh, wow.
I had my first.
I mean, it wasn't your hardcore mafia, but literally, it
my
was
dad did.
Yeah, they had in New York. They had an underground.
No way.
Yeah,
and he literally shot my mom's brother over moonshine. So my mom's brother nearly died. But from that, learning later on, my grandmother had to escape Alabama to escape him. And the first time she tried to, he had her arrested from police that he, had bought and paid for. And there's police record, there's arrest records or whatever that showed that she was beat to a pulp with a board.
Oh, wow.
Your grandmother?
She had to leave Alabama. Like, that's how she came to Texas. So that story is important because learning about him, he had two sides to his personality, basically. Generationally, then, that brother, my mom's brother that got shot, was the same way. He had a lot of those same tendencies, very mean, very violent, and then he had this charming side. My brother is a lot the same way, and these are all like firstborn. And my brother did a lot of horrible things, and he actually got involved with drugs and the drug scene and was arrested. And then my son came along, and in his teen years, started noticing some things. We lived in Plano at that time, and just some things with his personality. I had him in counseling. I was going to a psychiatrist, trying to figure stuff out. And as a mom, you just know there's something not right, but you have to try to balance being encouraging as well as deep felt concern. And I felt I knew something on the inside spiritually. I just knew there were some things I needed to do, and I got talked out of that. It's a lot of people in the family just saying he's just being a teenager, blah, blah, blah.
Was
but I knew that wasn't true.
Second husband?
This is when I'm married with my current husband.
Yeah.
What did you see? Like, what
he began, well, first of all, he always, as a firstborn, he struggled a lot with self-confidence, which is amazing because he was so naturally talented in so many ways. He's very, very bright, but started noticing in his early teen years some things with his personality, and he would shift. Very, very needy, like charming on one hand. On the other hand, he could stay up really late, and we always knew he was like a night owl, but then he would start lying, and he could defend the lie and never, ever, ever want to tell the truth about it. So there was this growing concern about a lot of things you couldn't quite put your finger on. So we moved to Decatur. We had family land out there and moved out there, and then from that, he just got angry and went to live with his dad for the first time, and I guess that just didn't go well. And his dad didn't believe in mental illness. He didn't want to buy into a lot of this stuff. So we had some disagreement there. But so I would continue to take my son to counseling and to psychiatry appointments where they were trying to test him to determine exactly what's going on. And with bipolar, it's very, very hard to diagnose it. You kind of go through a lot of other diagnoses first.
So while you're trying to do the right thing, just figure out something for you, because I mean, I have an 8-year-old, so I can at least put myself in the thought process of that place.
Yeah.
So while you're trying to do everything you can to help your son, you have his dad who's working against you.
Yeah, and again, good relationship. He didn't want to buy into that. He
Some
just
people
didn't.
don't.
Yeah.
And it was hard, and there was undermining going on in the family, enabling some bad behaviors with him, but it ended up in his senior year. His dad was letting me know there were some behavioral things going on with him that were really escalating. And to make a long story short, he saw there was drugs beginning to happen, and he was arrested.
What kind of drugs?
Wow.
It was a mixture of a lot of pain, just different medicines that he was getting on the street. For those parents out there, it's very, very easy for your kids to get just prescription drugs that get mixed and made into hardcore drugs.
Yep.
And he was self-medicating on top of me taking to a psychiatrist who was trying to medicate him properly, which would make sense as to why the psychiatrist wasn't able to do their work, because he's self-medicating as well. But just before his prom, he was arrested. So that was difficult.
For drugs?
For drugs.
Oh. Did you get that call? Like
his dad is the one who called me because he was living with him. So we all dealt with that as a family together. He graduated. We ended up sending him away to Arizona to a facility. And he basically would just do a whole lot of things to just make us think he was going to do what was right and just didn't have the desire. But this manic stuff it was getting worse, much worse. And so was the drugs. So we did a whole lot as a family to try to help him, and balancing the tough love, because I'm not a person who's going to enable the bad stuff. At the same time, you're trying, like I'm in counseling myself to figure out this new thing going on and trying to get information. I've never done drugs, don't desire to do drugs, but it's in my family, so I need to educate myself. And he was sent to prison. And you have a young...
Your son?
My son was sent to prison.
What was he sentenced for? I mean, like what? I know obviously
he
doing drugs, was he selling?
The thing we have to understand, which is so sad, this is another advocacy thing that I want to do. There's so much going on wrong with drug dealing because they don't ever try to really get to the sources. Those people love to get people hooked on drugs so that those people then need to deal drugs so that they can keep up their habit, and then they arrest them. Those people go down, and they don't really find the hardcore drug people who are doing this. And that's kind of what happened with him. He was arrested for possession of stuff with an intent to sell.
So he had a lot done.
It wasn't a huge amount. I can't remember, but I mean, there was a decent amount.
Yeah. So he goes to federal charge. He goes.
Yeah.
How old is he at this time?
Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff, I can't even fully remember it all. All I can say is that people at that age for that type of conviction don't need to be in our hardcore prisons. They need to be going to other types of facilities. They need a timeout. They need a consequence. I'm a full believer in that.
He was in high school? Was he in high school?
He had graduated. He did graduate high school. He's not in college because that didn't work out.
But he's the age
an
of
adult.
Okay,
he's over 18. And so legally, there's only so much as parents you can do unless they're willing to sign their rights over to allow you to. That's the other part. So with bipolar, then they go into this whole manic stuff, and it can rip through a family like a freaking riptide. It's just very divisive, very difficult. He's very manipulative, very conniving in that mode. And then he has another side that's real sweet. And you have to try to balance as a mom, where's the healthy part of me being an advocate, and where's the part where I have the tough love? And that was a constant struggle. But then in the midst of it, you have family members when you're trying to do the tough love thing, undermining you and enabling a lot of the bad stuff and working them. The whole thing was just bad. But I'd say our system is broken because we did away with mental facilities many years ago, and they should have, because they were just totally, bad stuff happening. Instead of fixing it, they just did away with them. And we need them. We need them desperately because now our society is enabling and allowing drugs to be going on in our society. And we have tons of people hooked on them.
Isn't it crazy? You're so, I'm sorry, you just, man, and to what you just said, it's crazy. We hear about these rappers. I was gonna say these little this and little pump or little these little rappers, and I say I don't know why Lil.
Their names are
Lil something,
Lil Mike,
little Mike, little table. But they're glorifying it, right? It's one of the craziest things. Like I've done a ton of drugs. I've done enough drugs for everyone in this room. Or I think Marcella's probably done more than me. But no, I'm just kidding. But the point is that. Like I was like a hidden drug addict. Like I was a closet drug. Now
there's a lot of those.
There are, but there are more people who will glorify it. And so then you have these kids who see this impression. Oh, we've had these conversations before where you see stuff on social media and everyone immediately, most people think, I want that. So
it's a
people
social
glorify
thing, no big
deal.
Well, and I think in our day, it was like just the weekend. Like people were able to just go out on the weekend, do party, and go home and go to bed.
God,
and then
I feel aged in that one in our day. Right there, I feel really.
And he did gaming. That was one thing. He was amazing at gaming, but then you're up a lot at night, and I think that triggered it. So, with some people, drugs can actually create symptoms of bipolar. With him, he already had it, and then the drugs just escalate all of that.
Oh God!
And then there's other mental illness, and then so he's been incarcerated, and they didn't just put him. Well, he's been incarcerated more than once.
Wow!
But the first time, like when he was very young, they put him in some hardcore facilities with hardcore criminals. These people don't need to be in that. He's young. He's impressionable.
Wow. I agree.
And you have to understand how broken our prison system is. There's many guards and people working high up in the prisons. You would not even believe the stuff that these people have to deal with, because if they're not willing to run game, quote unquote, and play the part of that with these guards, then they get targeted in other ways. And we talk about bullying. Oh my gosh, you can't understand.
These guards are the presidents of the United States of that facility.
Well, and they are horrible, crooked. Many of them should be in prison themselves. They're not vetted properly at all. Many of them have short man syndrome or I was beat up, I was hurt, I was mean. People were mean to me, so I'm going to use this as a way to get my power.
Oh my God,
and they're literally allowing drugs into the system. And then if if you want being good with me to where I don't target you, you got to do this for me. But it's just a whole. So then you're basically teaching these people who just have a drug addiction how to be a criminal, and then we put them out in society, and we wonder why we have more people with a criminal mindset, and they can't. They're basically put out there with you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And so that was very, very hard.
Mom. How do you,
I'm a mom balancing.
Anything.
I remember the first time, and I knew the facility he was at because my brother had been in prison from his whole escapade. So that's just a whole other thing. Man. But my brother made the choice to do what he did. His was very ugly. He was in with some very bad people for money. And, but because of that, my mom did a lot of prison ministry, and knowing some of the facilities that were hardcore criminals, they put him as a young adult in one of those. It's Ferguson. I drove up to see him there.
Really?
He was at Ferguson.
He
should never. He's never been.
That's hardcore.
Violent or stolen or broken into people's homes, kind of a thing. It was literally about drugs. And I drove up to see him there, and there is an old chapel there, and I just remember bawling, just breaking down and bawling, thinking, "Oh my God, like what do I do here?"
Before you
just
go
have
in.
to pray, yeah. So that was the first time, and then he was in and out of there.
How long was he there the first time?
It was a couple of years.
So when you went the
Really?
first time, I want to know when you went in there the first time to see your son in prison. Take us through that.
You have to psych yourself up, because for me, it's like I don't want to be, not to say that I won't let him see me cry, but it's like I got to deal with that on my own. I need to be strong for him at this point. And I just had to deal with it in the car and pray a lot.
So when you walk in, were you by yourself?
Yeah, you go there, you go through a guard stand, and I don't know, different facilities do different things, but then you go into a day room where you can see them and you sit across from the table with them, and there's other people visiting their family too.
So you could hug him.
I could. It was a contact visit because we're family.
Oh.
And the hard thing is, at that point, he had been involved enough to where he started kind of having that gangster kind of a talk, which I can't stand. It's not who he is. That's not who he was created to be, but you still have to just go with that. And that's who he was at the moment, and try to love them through it at the same time. Remember the example that you set for them growing up, and the strength that you tried to have to persevere through your own things. And you just sort of think, wow, okay, this is his low point. I would never want to get to a place like this. But surely through this, he's never going to want to come back.
Right.
And so we fast forward to where he went in literally when I was dealing with the stuff with my affair, or with the affair that happened in my marriage. Just a few weeks prior to that, I had found out he had been arrested again.
For same
So I dealt
drugs?
for drugs. Well, actually for a violation of his parole. It was a whole thing. He got targeted, honestly, with this small town we had lived in. They wanted to make an example of him, and they said that if you ever come in this county again, this isn't mom trying to think it. My dad was involved in this. The bail bonds lady was like, there's something really bizarre.
So
basically,
did he go back
they
in the
planted
county?
stuff on him in that county that made him go back to prison.
But why did he go back to that county?
Because our family lived there.
So they're saying, God, that's really.
There's a whole lot to that would take us a whole hour to even discuss. But he got involved with a girl, got the girl pregnant. There's a child. She's just as messed up as he is, and she's older than him. There's a whole lot of stuff there.
So let me stop you for a second. So you're seeing, this is your oldest, right? Your firstborn.
Yeah.
Okay, man. So you're seeing your firstborn go through this. I got to imagine initially he's just super remorseful. I think anyone, when we're like at our lowest, we tend to, most of the time, most people tend to be very remorseful. Like, God, I messed up. I don't want to be here again. I don't ever want to be back in this place. So he gets out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
was he that way?
Was he? Yeah, I was going to, yeah.
That's where I would have to say, I think to a degree, so many people don't want the consequence, but they're not truly repairing themselves.
So
they're not repentant.
Ever,
they're not dealing with, I don't want to be this person anymore. They just don't want the consequence anymore.
Do you think he even knew? Like, I mean, I'm wrong. I knew he knows he messed up. He knows that the reason he went to jail is because of him, not anything else.
Yeah.
Do you think, because it took me a long time, there's plenty of things I've done where after the consequence, I just hated the consequence.
Exactly.
But I didn't really know, I need to fix this because this is really, like, I truly didn't know.
I'm screwing other people's lives up and my own.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that reality has still hit him.
Oh,
because there's been more division happen. But
he's 30 now?
He's 30 now.
So the first time, we don't know the age, about, you think you said
he was in his early, like
20.
19, 20. Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
all
then
right. So go ahead.
So you have a grandbaby.
Yeah, and I don't even get to be around them. I mean, it's a bad deal. She's bipolar. There's drug addiction in the family. There's
baby?
A lot of stuff. No, the mom.
The mom.
How old is the baby?
Yeah.
He's 5 now.
So how soon after, because I want to connect dots that I'm sure people are listening or just want to connect also, or I know I just want to connect it for myself. How soon after his first time that he was incarcerated, did he deal with violating his probation? How soon after that first time?
I mean, every time it's not been really too long. I would say it's been within a year.
So within a year,
sure.
He goes back in there. Who did he off in that county? Did he just off everyone, the judge?
It was a person who at the prison he had gotten because when you're incarcerated, they sometimes transfer you. They transferred him closer to where we were, but that was small town and that was very crooked. That person who was over that prison
hated him for whatever reason.
Hated him because he wouldn't rat people out. Yeah. Well, there's a whole thing where they want you to rat people out, but if you rat people out, you're gonna So he's like, I'm not gonna do that. So he's the one who said, if you ever come back to my county again, I'm gonna have it out for you. That person then got moved over to county, and he's like head over that. Ugh. So he had it out for him once he found out he was there.
So when he found out he was there and he violated his probation, how long did they put him back in for?
Actually, he had not even violated his probation at that point. He got arrested for an old ticket, quote unquote, but it was a ticket that had been taken care of. It was truly arrested for just finding an excuse to arrest him. My dad actually...
Did they let him out after they realized... Sorry, I'm just...
They had to let him out, but when my dad went to get him, like my dad's pretty savvy, pretty smart, and they were planting something on him at that point in time.
What?
And they held him down, swabbed him, which we know now they swabbed him to get DNA. So that they could say what they planted on him, they could put the DNA on it and say that it was his. It's a whole bizarre situation.
So how did you find, let me ask this because I want to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
So how did you guys find out, because there's a second part to this question.
Yeah.
How did you guys find out that it was planted on him?
Because he had been in the county, they're strip searched over and over and over again. He was literally getting ready to come home or get out, and my dad was picking him up. Yeah. And the guards came to my dad and said, ho, you wait here, don't go back. And my dad said, no, he's been released, I'm going to go back. Well, they knew there was something really weird going on there, but what had happened is some other guards then had held my son down, and there was no what they were holding him for wasn't valid, so they were going to let him go. Yeah. The bail bonds lady, I contacted her. I can't really fully trust my son's stories, so she had said in 20-something years, I've never seen a situation like this, where all of a sudden, like he's in the jail and he's been given new charges for stuff. And it all happened at that time when he was about to get out.
Oh, wow.
And they had planted something on him. Basically, then when my dad got him, there was just a whole weird situation with the guards. They weren't wanting my dad to go back there. My dad knew something was not right, but he couldn't go back to the jail where he was. So as all of that came about, then they found charges for drugs on him, which couldn't have been legitimate, but that's what ended up. Then he was in Dallas.
In prison?
He was in a county jail at that time. And so he was basically in Dallas somewhere. It was raining. He had a car with a temporary license plate on it, and the rain made the license plate get off. So he got pulled over for no license tag. And from that, then they found this warrant, and it just kind of went downhill from there. And he at this point, he was at a very low. He was at least talking to me, letting me know he was getting depressed. He was getting down. He was feeling like he wanted to go back to his some of his old ways. I knew when he would get manic, and he would at least talk to me about that. Say, I know, Mom, I'm not getting to a good part of my head. So it didn't make things that he always does okay, but I could at least understand because he was talking to me and wanting to try to work through it. He was very, very down. The girlfriend with his son was doing a lot of stuff to him, and that made it even more depressing. She was using that then for him to not see his son. And so all of those things to say, he gave a ride to a guy that he knew he shouldn't have given a ride to, but that guy ended up having drugs on him. And when the police pulled him over, they really shouldn't have been able to search his car. But when they looked him up and saw that he's a felon, then they want to try to force to do, a search on his car. And they handcuffed him so that he couldn't do anything. And they searched his car, and then they arrested him for that. And
so
then there was this warrant.
The guy didn't take responsibility for the drugs?
No, well, the guy ended up getting a plea. And so what he had told my son is, no, this is my stuff. And he had a letter that he sent him even, but they gave him a plea. It was, I think, maybe it was his first time. I don't remember for sure the other guy if it was his first time or not, but he got a plea for ratting out my son or whatever, and he ended up just having to take the fall for it. My son was so afraid of them. If you don't take the plea, then they're just going to railroad you even further, and that is true. It does happen. So they talked him into taking this plea, or they were going to make him go to prison for a lot longer. And I kept saying to him, you didn't do anything wrong. You need to go have a fair trial. On this one, I'm going to stand with you. You need to go have a fair trial because what they're doing to you is not right and they're scaring you. But he was just so afraid that he went ahead and took the plea. And then he went back to prison. And
how long did he go to prison this time?
This time he was in way longer than he should have been. It was 5 years.
Is he in prison now?
He's now incarcerated again. But
so this is his third time?
So he's in a county jail right now.
But this is his third time?
I think so. Overall, yeah.
So I can imagine how tough a situation this is for you, right? As a parent, right? Yeah. You're seeing your baby boy. You're seeing
and the whole stigma of this is not the kind of people that we are, but at the same time, I'm not going to walk around with embarrassment and not support the good things that I need to support in the situation.
Well, you do what you're doing. You love your child. You don't justify or agree with. You love your child. So what do you think is it? I mean, at this particular point, when does it come to a point where he has it? You guys put the responsibility on him to where, because I guess it's good that he has, or obviously his mom that he can go back to and you can comfort him. But I mean, have you ever had that hard conversation with him? Like, look,
so that's the hard part about our relationship is because I'm a very direct person. Yeah. We're going to deal with stuff up front.
What? You are?
But no way. He's, because of the bipolar and other stuff, he's incredibly manipulative, and with that comes divisiveness.
But you see that now, right?
Oh, I see it. Yeah. But other family members then don't want the conflict, so they just keep everybody divided. And so what I've said before was the family needs to stay united on this, and you need to get educated on bipolar, first of all.
Does he acknowledge? Sorry,
he knows he has it.
So is he taking medication for it?
Well, he takes medication, and you can read about this with bipolar people. When they're in a manic state, they don't believe they need anything. Right. They're superior, they're supreme, they're this, that, everything. But then he self-medicates with all kinds of stuff. And but so you have the family members that don't want to believe in that, and they undermine, which doesn't help. Number one, it doesn't help the goodness of the family.
What are they doing to undermine? Like, so how do? And I'm curious because it's so crazy to me because it almost seems like it's like 1 + 1 = 2. Let's all stop the madness with them. And so how do they undermine? I'm curious.
Just out of naivety. I mean, he makes them believe I'm a bad guy and I'm doing all these things to try to control him, and I'm doing all this stuff. So the one person who knows the most, who's been educated the most, has been me and my dad. Honestly, we've both stood with him and gone to see him and supported him outside of anybody in the family. But there's just a lot of things that he says and does, and he gets people divided so that one person isn't talking to the other person, and I can see it happening, but I can't make them do what they need to do. I've told everybody in the family, let me get the MHMR person, or you can go to a counselor yourself and learn about bipolar. Mental health and mental.
I was like, what's the
MHMR?
acronym?
That's basically like, because he's now legal on his own. He's got to get it from the state. Yeah. But they will do an advocacy meeting to help you know what you need to do, and you got to be very strong, as well as his parole officer. I'm like, let's have them to meet with all of us as a family so we can work together. Because in the end, I'm the bad guy, which doesn't help our relationship any, and that it hurts me like hell. It's been very bad. And then the other people try to make you feel like you're a bad guy, but you're really trying to do the things, to set this person up where they can be. Because I've had to learn and interview other people I know who have bipolar family members or who are bipolar, and to see that they can go on and have very successful lives. He's incredibly bright. He's incredibly brilliant. But you've got to learn to take what you have and see that truth, and then be willing to go, okay, how can I function my best with that in mind?
So at the end of the day, is this mostly a drug issue? Just an addiction?
It's both. He will go into a major manic state, and then he's acting all crazy and all kinds and stuff, and telling all kinds of lies so that people believe him, and they enable helping him.
Sounds like it.
I have a question. Has he, what Bernie said earlier, has he ever been remorseful and feeling bad for the rest of the family, for his brother, for his sister, you?
This time, that's where I really was supportive, was this time. There was a lot of that happened.
Just now. This
last time that he was in prison.
Where's he at right now? What county is he at? What?
He's in Dallas County right now. Yes. Yes.
I think they all suck, but that's the closest one I can relate to. Not that I've ever been in jail, but
I was basically through all of this. He said and did a lot of things that I've been waiting for the last several years.
Like what? Tell me.
Mom, I know and understand as a mom the struggles that you've gone through and how you were there and what you stood for and just that acknowledgement of all that. And I know that you of all people know you did the work to understand me and to stick with me in spite of not liking my choices. I'm very sorry for the hurt I've caused my family.
Wow.
And I haven't been there for my sister. A lot of that stuff that you need to hear that seems to be genuine. Whereas before he really was too prideful to do that. And he did the same thing with his grandfather and then his dad. His dad had kind of written him off. And so he had conversations with his dad. He has siblings on his dad's side now as well. And same thing. He wasn't there for any of them. And so when he was coming home this time, I basically was just coming back from LA. That was a total cool thing that I was going to be living here and he needed that support. But we set it up to where he was going to be living at my niece's. He grew up with her. They were very kind of like brother and sister, but I was going to be close so he could kind of stay there some as well. Have a little freedom, but yet accountability. Again, I encouraged my whole family. You've got to understand that if he goes into this state, we all have to protect, number one, protect the family. Don't allow that to be what divides everybody because I've seen it happen too much. And the second thing is I've gone through enough stuff in the last several years to where I can't do it on my own, firstly. Secondly, he will target me. He definitely will. And that immediately from the get-go. Nobody had the meeting with MHMR. Nobody had a meeting with the parole officer. And it got deemed that you're trying to have too much control over him. He's 30 years old after all. Let him be an adult. And it's not that you don't want them to be an adult. You just understand when you've made the choices you've made and you've had a strike 2, strike 3 is not good. You've got to understand to protect that person from themselves and help them to know as a family, we're going to all talk. So if you start kind of getting a little bit off, buddy, even if it's whatever, we're all going to talk together so we all know. And nobody did that. And so I finally just said, you know what? That's it. What I have to focus on at this point in time is my daughter and me and us staying healthy and me staying mentally strong because I can't control anything he does and I can't control the choices you all want to make. But I'm not going to be called in at the 11th hour to fix what you guys all are creating because I've kind of had to do that several times and I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to be your rescuer and I'm not going to be the person that you want to say, hey, I've screwed this up and didn't do what I should do, so come in and fix it. And then that's really what happened. Stuff started going awry and I was getting piecemealed little pieces of information, but my niece didn't want him to know she was telling me. Sure. And as it turns out, like there was a lot of stuff she was allowing in her home, including hard drugs in her home, that as soon as I found out about it, I went to his parole officer and I went to MHMR and I told them the truth about what's going on. I'm like,
what did they say?
Your desire is to help keep him from going to prison. This is a mental issue and an addiction issue.
Man.
I desire for him. He needs the help he needs to get, but he needs to be in a facility with accountability because obviously this family doesn't know how to work together to help him.
How hard was that to go? How hard was that to on your own make the decision to go to his parole officer, knowing that it could put him back in jail, but you're doing it with a pure heart of like, you'd rather see your son back in jail getting the help he wants than to see him out, right? So,
well, his brother, again, naively, his brother wanted to try to help him, and has a good job, so he financially helped him a little bit and then gave him a vehicle to use. In my mind, I don't care if you're my son, if you're my parent or whatever. I can't think about a person being out on the streets and then they've hurt somebody innocent because of their actions. And then I knew about it and I did nothing about it. So if his choices have caused him to be put away into a place to where he can't hurt somebody else, that's better for the majority of the people. Sure. And that's the way I had to look at it. His parole officer's there to help him succeed. And if he's getting off, she should be helping him. But the way our laws are, they're so screwed up that basically until he screwed up, she couldn't do anything unless he's willing to come to her and admit what's going on.
Do you think she
and he can pass a P test. He knows how to.
So what about what Marcella said? What about putting him on that Britney Spears?
Oh, conservatorship.
Yeah, so he won't agree to that.
You have to
So
agree.
that was my whole thing. When I went to her, I said, he needs to be in a mental facility. My son shouldn't. And she did agree. She said, people like him shouldn't be in our prisons, but that's just the way it is. I said, okay, well, we need to change that. But can you help me to get him into a facility where he's going to live there, like a halfway house where there's strong accountability. They can administer his meds. And basically, it was just until he screws up or unless he fails a P test, I can't make him. And I'm like, well, this is really jacked up.
So I got a totally separate question. Two things. Mm-hmm. One, how has it impacted your daughter?
Mm-hmm.
Second question is, how has this impacted your marriage?
You're gonna make me cry.
And I mean, because so we're hearing the meat of it. Like it's very touching, heartfelt. But there's more to it than just you and your son and the family. You have a daughter, as you were just acknowledging. I just need to take care of my daughter, and then there's no question about it. This completely impacts your marriage because you're impacted and your husband's impacted.
Right.
So how did you?
Well, he did a good job of trying to be there as a stepdad for him. He really did. He was amazing with all of that. And for Ari, she was so young and she's had to see me go through it. But again, telling her the truth to what she could handle, and then she's learned more throughout it. She's just said, "Mom, I see so much about what you've gone through," and it's made her admire me, which that's not like I'm not trying to get my daughter to look up to me, but I do want her to be a strong woman, to know that life is going to kick you in the butt and you got to keep going. And as an actor, we were living in LA and just in the middle of stuff going on that not all of those people needed to know about. We had to keep going. And I had to get her counsel and my self-counsel and having people close to us that we could vent to, talk to, break down to, while I taught her that when life happens, you got to still go forward as well. She's done an incredible job. But she was hopeful in us coming back here that she would she would get to see her brother make some better choices. And so that's been hard for her in the midst of seeing her daddy not be there and be absent and tell her things and then not be there. She's had to see it with her brother, and it sucked. It sucked as her mother watching her hurt from it, but I'm proud of her because she talks about it and she tells me what she's feeling, because it's when you don't talk about it, it's going to come out in your health or anxiety or anger. I know that because that's what happened to me as an abuser. I didn't know how to express it, so I'd get angry so that somebody would listen to me. And she's done incredibly well.
That's awesome.
I know that this just happened recently where Tonja, I would ask her how is her son. She goes, I don't know where he is.
Well, what ended up happening is
I was like, what?
Things
I don't even
escalated.
know if he's dead or alive. She didn't know where he's at.
I had to basically this time say, okay, I can't do anything else. And he doesn't want my help. Bipolar, not bipolar. He knows what he needs to do to get healthy. And he's not willing to do it. He's just going to lie, manipulate, connive. He was, as it turned out, when I learned the truth, everything going on, he was using hardcore drugs. And I couldn't believe the fact that this was going on, and nothing was said sooner. But he was using heroin. He was using meth. And those are the two hardest things, as we all know, to get off of. And he was trying to overcome it on his own. And my niece would say, well, he can't. You can't overcome that. Even if you don't have a past history of drug addiction, you need help. You need intervention. But you can't partially do the intervention. You got to totally do it. And you have to have everybody on the same page. And so at that point, I basically had to just realize he has made me out to be a monster, an absolute monster. It has hurt like hell. But I have to know that that's not my son. that's somebody different. And I can't control that part, but I also can't allow it in my life, and I can't allow it in my daughter's life. He can get very mean and abusive. And so my dad went with me. We had a meeting with him to kind of call it out. And I basically just said, son, I will never stop praying for you, and I'll never stop believing that you can do this. But we've tried to help you as a family, and you have crapped on everybody. You've hurt everybody in this family, and you've got to figure it out on your own. This is goodbye for me, but I'm here when you get it right, because I do believe in it.
When did you do this?
That was before he actually started missing. So my niece continued to let him live with her for a few days.
2 months ago?
About 2 months ago. And then it went downhill really fast. I tried to get my son to get his Jeep from his brother. I'm like, this is going to go downhill really fast. I really don't want him in your vehicle because you're the one who has assets, and it's a liability on you. I don't want something to happen to you. That didn't happen. So basically it ended up, my niece did have to kick him out of her house. And after that, it just went downhill really, really fast, and nobody could get him to respond to them. And he was with some chick, and they were doing drugs together. And he went into a Walmart, I guess was shoplifting for something for her, and got arrested for that, and a violation. Because by this time I had been communicating with the parole officer to try to help to get him into a mental facility. And he's gotten a blue warrant, which is basically if a parolee is out and they're not reporting like they should, they issue a warrant for them that then they have to come before them and see what they want to do, that you've violated your parole. So when he got arrested for this shoplifting, there's that piece too. And he's just waiting to go before the magistrate on what they're going to do. And I literally just had to pray, and I just heard the Lord say the same thing as he said to my husband at the point where I separated from him, of you have to trust him to me. I see everything and you can only see in part. And do you trust him to me? And I just said, yes. I can't do the work he needs to do. And he's the way the laws are, unless he is willing to give power of attorney to my dad or to me over his health. And that's what happened with Britney Spears. And I think even to Catherine Zeta-Jones, she had to get to a place of willing to let family members have authority over her for a period of time.
Oh, wow.
So Britney Spears, I think, still has her dad, from what I understand. But he won't do it.
Oh, so you have to agree that you can't just do it.
Yeah.
The court can't just do it.
Well, the only thing we could do, this was what was so frustrating, that the parole officer and then the MHMR people said is, if we see that he's at a place where he's a threat to himself or others, we can go to MHMR and issue what they call a mental warrant. And then they'll put him in a psych ward for up to like 72 hours. And her hope was that he would then be willing to admit that he needed further help. Well, that would never happen. I never got it to happen because we couldn't find him.
Oh.
But it was basically, okay, so you're not willing as a parole officer then to see that there is an issue, to understand there's an issue and proactively do something. You're only willing to do something reactively after something negative has happened. And that's just messed up to me.
So has he ever said to you, like, I don't want this life anymore, like I want to do better? Or has he?
Oh, yeah. He had said all of that
before this last time.
Yeah.
Got it.
I never ever want, I've got all the letters. Yeah. Yeah, I never want to come back in here. This is not the life. And he was speaking so articulately. He was more like his old self, and still defensive, because that's a part of the bipolar nature. They get real defensive real easy. Prideful. But it was so much better. And then as soon as he got out and just started, I think now that I know what I know, there was some early onset of drugs that I didn't know about even. But I'm like, okay, his temperament, his mindset, everything's changing already.
So do you think he started drugs very young, like in high school or middle school?
No, he started drugs actually when he went to live with his dad. But before that, there had been some alcohol stuff happen.
Oh, okay. Curious.
How about the other son?
So his brother is a great kid. Brennan has always been he's a leader. He's ambitious. He played baseball. It was his goal to play baseball through college, and he did. He got a scholarship academically and athletically, and he's doing very well. He's out of college now and has a job. But, I have the concern for him that's somewhat what happened with me, where I want to overcome what I know instead of truly dealing with it. I don't want the life my brother had, or I don't want to have to struggle financially. And so I'm just going to go for being successful in the world's eyes. And then there's nothing wrong with that. He's a leader. He is made to be a leader, and I want him to be that. But I just still have that concern that, are you really dealing with all the stuff the proper way so that it doesn't come out in other ways? Are you avoiding relationships because of it? And I think there is some of that. But he's in a good place. He's in a very good place. He's a great kid.
Goodness. I mean, I don't even know.
Yeah, definitely. You've experienced some life for sure, to say the least.
Yeah, I think the hard part is, this is that part where you see things for my family. There was my brother, and there was a lot of stuff that he caused in our family and his own choices, but he was still protected as the guy. And my dad was told he owned a business and did very well with that, started it from scratch, didn't have a proper education, just a good businessman. And he was told, your daughter's the one who has the leadership, your son doesn't. And that's not what you would wish, but he and my brother would go through all kinds of struggles and fighting in the business. And I basically just was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go make it on my own. And I did. I went and made it in the business world totally on my own without connections to them. And my brother, through good, bad, and ugly, has done a lot of things in the family where basically nobody is around him anymore. But I see that same pattern. And my family would always just say, Tonja's going to be fine. Tonja's going to be fine. And I think I was. I'm a survivor. But you still would do, I think, wow, how much better would I be if I had the support that he had when he was causing a lot of these things and doing a lot of destructive stuff. And that's where I had to get to the point with my son. That son's name is Cody, by the way, my older son, of saying, I'm not going to repeat this pattern that my parents did, where you still just hold on to hope and you're enabling all this stuff. I have to put my time and effort into the family over here that deserves all of mom and all of me and staying healthy. And I still have a hope and a desire that he can do what he can do. But I don't want to repeat the tendencies that happened within my own family, where my mom and my dad both just kept pouring into my brother and enabling a lot of stuff. And then for me, it's like, Tonja will be fine. Tonja will be fine. And I'm like, I kind of need some help over here. I kind of need some support over here. Doesn't mean that I didn't make some bad choices and I didn't go through some stuff. Obviously, I had the marriages, but I was still always trying to be responsible and put myself in counseling, put my kids in counseling, working hard, striving. And I think a lot of times what happens within our families is we should always help the person in need. But sometimes we go so far that we do the work they need to do. We don't let them do the struggle themselves.
Right.
And we hurt them, we cripple them. And that's just kind of where I'm at with my son at this point. I have to let that go and hope and pray that I get to see this side of heaven, that he's figured it out. He's gone through the struggle. I love the story of a butterfly, and how they come to be. From a caterpillar to a butterfly, they go into that cocoon, and they say that if you ever try to help them out of the cocoon, it ruins their ability to fly. That struggle of working out of it is what helps them to be able to fly. And I kind of think that that's the way we are. There's a lot of times we need people around us encouraging us and supporting us, but they can't do the work we need to do.
Right.
I'm a big believer in excellence, doing what you do well, doing it, always working at your craft. And I think that that's a problem in society. We kind of reward everybody, like, the trophy for everybody. I'm not a believer in that, because then you don't strive to say, I want that. I really want that. And I'm going to work my butt off to get it. And that is what my son Brennan did with baseball. He was naturally gifted in some areas, but other areas he had to work extra hard. And the coaches that he had, they told him what he needed to do to get there for scouts to look at him, and he wanted it bad enough. He did the work that other kids weren't willing to do. And I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
You are amazing, and I thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I think
talking about all of this
was very, very brave, for sure.
and so helpful. I think
I want your social media information, so if people want to get in touch with you.
Yes. For what I'm doing in the actors world, it is my company name is Empowered to Be, and it's EMPOWORD because we're empowered from the word and with our words. And then it's the number 2 and the letter B.
Oh, okay. Got it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's how you can find me on social media. And it's Tonja, Tonja Hartman. So, yeah.
So we're going to go to the Miss Polly question. We're going to call her Miss Polly.
Miss Polly.
Party with Polly.
Party with Polly.
You want a live intro again?
Yes.
All right. I'm excited.
Spider, it should just be that.
Man,
I do that
feel
on
like
my
you weren't
show
here
all
this
the
whole
time.
time, Spider.
There's been a lot of
Miss
stuff
Polly?
going on back here.
Oh,
Miss
What's up?
Polly. All right, so we got a question of the
we
day.
got to do his intro.
Oh, wait, that's right. We got to do the intro. Go ahead.
Sorry, I almost hit the button.
Good Lord.
Oh, yeah. You know what time it is.
Dude, that's
It's
pretty
party
awesome.
time with Polly, and you're all invited.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That's even better than what we had
I
before.
actually really like that
Oh
a
my
lot.
God, that's
Save that. We'll do it
No
again.
kidding.
So
That should be
here's
your intro.
man, I'm telling you. All right, so here's a question, or the question for you, Miss Polly. So is it every woman's fantasy to make love in a romantic location? Is that right? All right. Do you feel like it's every woman's fantasy? I guess let's ask all the women.
Yeah.
I
But
don't think it's every woman's fantasy, but it's a very popular fantasy.
I think it could be like that for anybody. The guys too.
Do you know why?
Why?
Do you know why, though?
Why?
Why? Because if you're in a romantic location, it's away from home, it's away from work, it's away from stressors. It's like you can just let go. Be free.
Yeah, makes sense. That's not hard to understand at all.
I put a palm tree in my bedroom for that
That's
reason.
right. Little sand.
Palm tree.
God. Exfoliant sand.
Tree. Yeah, ever swaying in the breeze.
Oh my God, that's funny.
That is pretty funny. I
think it's pretty common,
I think it's
actually.
common for guys and girls. Good Lord.
Good Lord.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, just because it's a great way of getting out of your, normal, everyday thing. So.
Makes sense. All right. Now let's go to the question of the day.
The two posh girls ask the question of the day.
All right. This is a good question. Is bad timing ever a reason not to break up with someone?
Bad timing.
Like Christmas, New Year's,
Oh.
Their birthday.
I
Maybe
told y'all,
on their birthday, that'd be really mean.
I told y'all my strategy, right?
What's that?
That I break up before Christmas, get together after Valentine's Day, and hope their birthday's in the middle.
Because you don't want to give any presents.
Exactly.
It's so funny.
That's not true, though.
I don't think I could break up with someone on their birthday. I'd feel really bad.
Yeah, I mean,
On vacation.
when is ever a good time to break up with anybody? That you're
I've
I'm
broken up
never
with
really-
someone right after vacation, like literally off the plane.
like, thank you for this. God, we're not together anymore.
I couldn't hold it in anymore.
Wow.
Like-
You're mean.
Well, I mean, you got to look at their actions. If their actions warrant it, they warrant
That's
it.
true. Yeah, and that does depend.
Yeah.
Like if it's your birthday and you cheated on me, we're still breaking up.
Dude, bye.
Yeah,
Wow.
see, I believe there's no bad timing. If you screw up, break
Yeah.
up. I don't care what
for
day
sure.
it is.
I agree. I agree.
No, if
I
it's
mean-
not going to work,
But if they
get rid of
screw
it
up,
as
but I
fast
mean,
as
like
you
if
No,
you're
it's okay.
unhappy and you're like, oh, I just don't know anymore, and they haven't done anything,
Then
I
I
think the
think
birthday might be a little harsh.
I agree with that.
And they're like, what? You're like, "Oh, I don't know. I just
I totally agree with both of you. Because I'm like you, Grabber. If you've screwed up,
yeah.
Yeah. I
Depends on
concur.
circumstance, I guess.
I concur.
Yeah, I couldn't go celebrate the birthday anymore.
Yeah, but I like the vacation one, like he didn't do anything wrong.
No.
Ever.
There was just no connection.
You could
anymore.
just tell it
I
wasn't going
just-
to go further.
I don't have feelings
why
anymore.
waste your time then?
Yeah, and
That's what it
so
is.
I
I
felt really
agree.
bad.
Good for you. Well, don't waste anybody's time either.
No,
if
yeah,
you
it's
know,
true.
no matter how much someone wants to be in a relationship, if you know that they're not the person, like there's nothing that's going to bring you back, no matter what. It is what it is. There's never a good timing, but it is what it is. So.
Yeah.
The spark
No,
is
but
gone.
it's really hard if you like stayed in the relationship a really long time to give it time, because you always think that because we're hangers on a lot of times, and we don't like to admit that we made a mistake or that things have gone bad, so we like to stay there.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I do see
Well, we love you, Miss
It'll
Polly.
be better.
We love you, Miss
I
Polly.
love you too.